I'm Vice Signal, and this is Cancel Lincoln.
The Emancipation Proclamation is not what the general public is led to believe it is. This is because it did not actually free any slaves upon its issuance, stating, quote, "All persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of the state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free." Close quote. The dictate issued by President Lincoln during the Civil War freed slaves only in territories held by the Confederacy, which, as implied, the Union did not have even the slightest control over. Not only that, but it did not free the over 450,000 slaves in Union states which Lincoln did control, including those owned by his generals Ulysses S. Grant and General Sherman. Slave owners in the Union states Kentucky, Maryland, Missouri, Delaware, and New Hampshire were allowed to keep their slaves throughout the entirety of the war, and therefore the Emancipation Proclamation was in reality a document of feckless words, which was deployed to attempt to inspire slave revolts in the South to the military advantage of the flailing Union Army, which at the time the decree was issued was failing badly in its mission to conquer the South. The rationale was that if slaves in Confederate territories believed that they would be free under Lincoln's army, that they would be more likely to rise against their Confederate masters. But it did not work. Perhaps this was because they saw the famous decree for the war measure that it was, divorced from any real concern for them, as the British newspaper the Manchester Guardian saw from an ocean away, when on February 20th, 1863, they condemned the Emancipation Proclamation, stating, quote, "To the few surviving chiefs of that great anti-slavery struggle in England, and the representatives of those who are gone, will have nothing to do with the hypocritical adaptation of their cherished principles as a pretext in the last resort for further shedding of human blood." Close quote. The prominent abolitionist Lysander Spooner also observed its shallow tactical nature, noting that the Republicans did not end slavery, quote, "as an act of justice to the black man himself, but only as a war measure." Close quote. According to Spooner, quote, "They wanted his, the black man's, assistance in carrying on the war they had undertaken for maintaining and intensifying that political, commercial, and industrial slavery." Close quote. Lincoln himself referred to the Emancipation Mandate as such in the proclamation, calling it, quote, "a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing rebellion," close quote, while also giving the seceded states 100 days to be able to return to the Union and keep their slaves, stating on September 22nd, 1862, that emancipation would take effect, quote, "on the first day of January, in the year of our Lord, 1863, close quote. It was yet another attempt to appease the South, which failed again, because they did not secede due to fear for the security of slavery, just as the North did not initiate the war to end it. For example, the Civil War started on April 12, 1861, yet the Emancipation Proclamation was not issued until September 22, 1862, more than 17 months later. Why would it take Lincoln that long if allegedly ending slavery was his goal from the outset? Moreover, if that was his goal, then why would he fire generals for freeing slaves in conquered Confederate territories early in the war, as he did to Union General John Fremont in November 1861 for freeing slaves in Missouri, and General David Hunter in May 1862 for freeing them in Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina? Expressing his disappointment in generals freeing slaves, Lincoln would later say, quote, "It was a war for a great national idea, the Union, and General Fremont should not have dragged the Negro into it." Close quote. Not only did Lincoln rescind their orders, but he also sent many slaves back to their owners, and many to work in army encampments, doing the dirtiest of tasks. As one Illinois lieutenant wrote, Quote, I have 11 Negroes in my company now. They do every particle of the dirty work. 2 women among them do the washing for the company. Close quote. These were called contraband camps. Today we might recognize them as concentration camps, where black laborers were forced to work, not allowed to leave, and not paid. Slave-filled plantations in Union-occupied Louisiana were also exempt from the Emancipation Proclamation, with many leased to New England profiteers, who also held black laborers against their wills and forced them to work with little compensation. After observing these Yankee profiteers that moved south to capitalize on the chaos created by the war, who were called carpetbaggers, a traveling reporter for the New York Herald wrote, quote, the desire of gain alone prompts them, and they care not whether they make it out of the blood of those they employ or from the land. The majority were unprincipled men who understood the enterprise solely as speculation. They had as little regard for the rights of the Negro as the most brutal slaveholder has ever shown. Very few of them paid the Negroes for their labor, except in furnishing them small quantities of food, for which they charged 5 times the value. Close quote. Southern slave owners, for all their inhumanity, at least had a sense of responsibility to provide for the basic needs of their slaves. Lincoln's own Secretary of State, William Seward, made note of the impotence of the Emancipation Proclamation, stating, quote, we show our sympathy with slavery by emancipating slaves where we cannot reach them, and holding them in bondage where we can set them free. Close quote. None of this adds up to the official Lincoln narrative most of us are taught in school, or the abolitionist reputation of the North, accepted by mainstream historians today. Slavery would not officially end in the country until the addition of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution on December 18, 1865, more than 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and after hundreds of years of being a staple of the Yankee economy, with Yankees referring to New England elitists.
Thank you for watching that episode of Cancel Lincoln. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel while you're at it. It really goes a long way in spreading the content. Thank you again, fellow rabble-rousers.